Okay, guys, so welcome you all in this demonstration class of Azure SQL Database Administration, which is the most demanding skill right now in the market for SQL DBAs. If you are equipped with this knowledge, certainly you will have a preference in the job. So you can grab the job easily in the market with a good hype if you have good knowledge in Azure SQL.
It's actually voice is not
Voices.
breaking actually.
You're getting some sound like keyboard kind of sounds.
Check my network here. The Wi-Fi is fine. Let me replug. How is the sound now? Do we still experience any background noise? Hello, is it fine?
Yeah, now it's better. Now it's fine. Thank you.
Okay. So I was explaining that Azure SQL skill is in demand, especially for SQL Server administrators. The reason behind is that most of the companies are migrating their on-premises, not only SQL Server, but you can say that they are migrating their data centers to cloud. And wherever people have Windows environment, I mean that where their domain and forest are based on Windows Active Directory. And on top of that, they definitely have many applications which are Windows based. But we will talk in context of SQL Server. So yes, of course, although SQL Server is available on Linux operating system, right? Some flavor of Unix that is on the Ubuntu also. So that is available on Unix variants operating system, I would say, but still the majority, I would say more than 95% of SQL servers are still on Windows Server, right? And hence Windows operating system, SQL Server is native to Windows operating system because both are products of Microsoft. And so is the Azure cloud. That is the cloud developed and being its services is being delivered to the customers by Microsoft. So all these three are native, I would say, Windows operating system, and then your SQL Server, right? These are native to Azure, I would say, right? Because all are products of Microsoft. That is the first reason. Companies' first choice is to migrate their Windows servers and SQL servers on Azure when they are planning to, vacate their data center or migrate their servers and along with SQL Server to Azure or any cloud, right? We have different cloud providers in the market. Azure is, I would say, nowadays, one of the leading provider right now. I am putting you all on mute. So definitely, Azure is one of the leading provider in the market, although your Amazon, right, has still the big market comparatively, but Azure is growing very fastly. And when it comes to SQL Server, right, we have different variations in Azure, right? We have database level services provided by Microsoft, that is Azure SQL, and a clone of instance level solution or service that is SQL Managed Instance. So both are being provided by Microsoft. That is why it is gaining the popularity in the market so far. This SQL Server is concerned because it's a Microsoft product and it's native to Microsoft for its Windows operating system as well as SQL Server. When you talk about Azure SQL especially, right? So before the SQL, I would say SQL Server. So the word Azure comes, right? Since this SQL service is available, SQL Server service is available in Microsoft Azure. So Microsoft prefixed it with the keyword Azure, right? And when you talk about SQL Managed Instance, that is another service, database service, or another flavor of SQL Server, you can say, is provided by Microsoft, which is almost your instance level solution where you can host multiple databases. So Azure SQL represents a single database, and your SQL managed instance can host or can contain or acts as a container for multiple databases, as you have the concept on your on-premise SQL Server. That is, on one instance, you can host multiple databases, right? So I would say that something is not new so far its database engine is concerned, right? The database engine almost remain the same. Somewhat the storage architecture and internally the high availability and disaster recovery solutions have been changed. That you have to understand. And one important thing is that why companies are opting to migrate their Windows servers, SQL servers, and all kind of servers, where it is web server or application server, right? File share, file server, they are migrating to Azure is definitely the cost, right? So it's cost effective, right? So it's cost effective in terms. What does it mean that that there is a term that is known as what we call that. I'm not remembering that term right now. What that term is, that is known as operations cost. I will come to that. Right now, I do not remember that. So when just think about when. Just take an example that when SQL Server instance is hosted on a VM, right, then what costs are included there, right? So for that, we have to understand the three, computing infrastructure model. Let us try to understand that. I will explain you what Azure is later on. First, try to understand this infrastructure model. Computing infrastructure model, right? So what is this? There are three models, right? That we have been operating with the first model from the very beginning. That is infrastructure as a service, right? So if a company has own data centers in different regions, when I say regions, it basically most of the time refers to different continents, such as Asia, America, then Australia, right? So Europe, likewise, different continents are there, right? So regions basically relates to different continents, but if a continent is too big, there could be more than one regions there also, and especially we have two regions in many continents. So far as Azure is concerned, I will talk about that also. What I am talking is we have been working in the infrastructure as a service model since very beginning. It's a term that is evolved or came into the picture when the concept of cloud was introduced in the market. But we have been following this from very beginning. Customers have their own data centers in different regions. Say, for example, one data center is there in Europe in Redditch, one city is there, Redditch, nearby Woodstock, which is the second largest city, Birmingham. So nearby Birmingham, one data center is in, say, for example, in Redditch, that is in Europe. Another is in, say, for example, in Columbus, in US, right? Another, say, for example, is in Singapore. Another, say, for example, is in Brisbane, in Australia. So there are different reasons where companies, still many of the companies have their own data centers, and they are connected over the internet, right? So what happens actually, let us try to understand with this picture here, right? So when you talk about a data center, right, basically a data center has multiple components, such as they have CPU racks, they have storage racks, they have uh, uh, they have networking components such as LAN cables, which are connected to different storage and different CPU racks and storage racks. Then they have routers and switches as networking components, right? So these all hardware components are there in the data center. The objective is ultimately to provide some kind of service when it comes to service, right? So the objective is to provide the service. That service can be a database service, that service can be a web-based service, that service can be an application service, right? So provide the service, that is the objective. These are networking storage servers. Then they also need some virtualization software such as VMware or Hyper-V, right? And on every, when they create the VM, that must be equipped with some operating system. It may be a Windows operating system, Linux or Unix operating system. So they need the license also for that. Then for application server, they need the middleware. For example, they need Internet Information Service or Apache Web Server, right? And they need some certain kind of runtime as per the environment, right? And on the top of that, you have your database on any of the VM. Then you have applications on any of the application server, and sometimes on the same web server. So this all includes heavy cost, a lot of cost. Hardware, equipments that you see here, that is included in networking, such as cables, data cables. Then there are switches, there are routers, right? There are a lot of things in networking. Then you have a cost in a storage. You have cost in VMware license, then you have cost of your operating system license, then you have cost of your middleware, that is the web server licensing cost. Although Internet Information Services, IIS, sits free with operating system, but other middleware such as Apache Web Server and etc. comes with some cost, right? So here, everything includes the cost from the networking to the middleware, then to the runtime, and then database, and then the application, you can also say. Everywhere the cost is involved. Apart from that, what I'm talking from here to here, networking, storage, server, virtualization, operating system, middleware, runtime, data, application, everything includes cost. Apart from that, cost is also there in the building, right? So some companies lease the building, some companies have their own buildings. then that building needs cooling capability, right? It needs electrician, some good electrician, some good operators for, maintain the temperature, that is good AC operators. Then they need also some experts of networks from hardware size. They need, I mean that they also need experts or professionals from data center management prospect, right? So these all things include some cost, and now the term I remember is known as OPEX, that is known as operational cost, right? So we have been working in IaaS infrastructure compute model since very beginning, but this IaaS infrastructure as a service term evolved very fastly, when the cloud was introduced, because we had to do some comparison with other models, right? So I think that you all are clear with this infrastructure model. Here you can see there are two legends here: you manage, Microsoft manage. This is in terms of Microsoft Azure. So if you have your own data center where you are running your own servers, own databases, your own application servers, web servers, right? Then these all things are needed. And apart from these all things, you need a building, you need AC, you need continuous electricity, a very good cooling, right? So these all includes operational cost that is known as OPEX, right? So OPEX is very high in infrastructure as a service model. Is it clear to all of you? Any question here? Okay, no question. Then there comes a concept of the infrastructure deployment model, right? Or computing deployment model that is known as platform as a service, right? So in platform as a service, what happens actually, cloud providers provides you and manage and maintain networking, storage, servers, and virtualizations, right? No. This is for on-premise. Now in infrastructure as a service, right? These all are provided to you. But in on-premise, we have been working almost close to the infrastructure as a service. So in cloud now, for infrastructure as a service, cloud providers provide, manage, and maintain networks. That is, they manage their cables, their switches, their routers, right? Everything they manage the power. They manage their storage, right? They manage the servers, and they manage the virtualizations, right? That is, they manage the VMware license, they manage the hypervisor license, everything is managed by them, right? Now, if you order a VM, say for example, in Azure Cloud, right? So you don't have to think about, right, in which data center it is, what network equipments are there, what storage are there. You don't have to think, right? You have the different choices for storage as well. You have the different choices for machine as well. For server, different series are there, right? You can choose any of the machine from any series as per your requirement. Some are some are processing intensive, some are memory optimized. So considering that uh, uh, requirement, you can order your VMs, right? But you have to pay for the license of your operating system. You have to pay for the license of your Middleware, you have to, that is for the web servers, you have to maintain the license for the runtime environment. You have to pay, the license for, your databases. For example, when you order a VM, after that, you go ahead and install SQL Server on that. So for that, you need SQL Server license, right? And whatever application you have, you can host on that. So that application has been developed by your development team in the company, and definitely includes some cost, or if company has purchased some application from some vendors, right? So that definitely includes some cost. So in platform as a service model, these four burdens are not under you. Apart from that, if you purchase the license of operating system, it's your burden to patch the operating system to make sure that it's updated. There is no vulnerability in that, right? So for that, you have to keep it updated with different, security patches as well. And when you host SQL Server, for example, on top of that, on top of that Windows operating system on the VM, in that case also you have to uh, keep your SQL Server updated by implementing different service packs, cumulative packs, and hot fixes, right? So these are the costs still involved if you go with infrastructure as a service. So the question is now, why to go with infrastructure as a service, right? If I have platform as a service model also here, where I don't have to worry about, managing and patching the operating system, that is patching the VMs, right? Where I don't have to worry about, keep updating the middleware. So why to go with this infrastructure as a service model? Why to go with, for example, to order a VM and then host SQL Server on that? So the answer is that there are some applications, right, which can only work when they are hosted, when the database is hosted on a VM. There are some legacy applications, right? In that case, you will have to go with the platform as a service. So we can conclude that here the COPEX, not COPEX, or OPEX, right? Here the OPEX, operational cost, is somewhat lesser than the cost that was included, that is included when our servers and databases are in on-premise data centers, right? So what is reduced here in OPEX? We don't need a data center, right? We don't need electricity. I mean that I don't have to lease a build. My company does not have to lease a building. My company does not have to set up the hardware, that is storage racks, CPU racks, right? Memory units, then networking components, right? And then the virtualization software such as VMware or Hyper-V. My company does not have to pay for that. My company, if I don't have to run the data center, or my company does not have to run the data center, in that case also, company will not have to, company will not have to pay for the professionals or the staffs those are required to manage and run the data centers, right? So these are the savings here, and headaches are somewhat lesser in platform as a service. When I talk about headache, that mean that especially companies don't have to manage the data centers, right? And their staffs, that they have lesser capex here, right? So let me come to the on-premise first here, and I will talk these two terms now. What is COPEX here, and what is what is CapEx and what is OpEx here. So CapEx is what? It stands for capital expenditure, right? So capital expenditure is included in the building in which the data center is there. Then the electricity that is consumed by the different components and to make the data center cool. Then the different hardware devices, those are required for networking, storage, CPU, memory, right? Then the license for, yes, then the license for the virtualized software, license for the operating system, license for the middleware, license for the database, and license for the application software. These will all come under your capital expenditure, that is CapEx. This is a question asked in interview: what is CapEx? What is OpEx? Right? So capital expenditure, whatever companies spends, a company spends in its data center for its building and hardware devices, plus its plus licenses for different kinds of software, that comes under capital expenditure. Operational cost is the monthly bill of the electricity, the monthly payment of the staffs, those who are responsible for managing the data center, that comes under operational cost, right? So when we talk about infrastructure as a service, we can see here the CapEx is pretty much, minimized here. Companies don't have to invest on buildings, networks, storage, right, virtualization software. Then another model that we have is known as your platform as a service, where you can see that these all things are maintained by the cloud provider. In our case, it is Microsoft. We are learning about the so it's Microsoft. Where the networking components, storage, servers, virtualizing software, operating system software, middleware software, runtime. Everything is managed by uh, the cloud provider. They also manages the databases, right? And they don't manage the application you have to manage, and somewhat you have to manage your database in terms of operations. So which database you want to create, how many databases you want to create, what users you want to create, what users you want to provide, what level of access, that you have to manage, right? But before that, you have to provision. And when you will provision at that time, even you don't have to pay for the license. There are some concepts for payment model. One is pay as you go. So whatever you consume, that you will pay. And one is the fixed charge for 1 year or 3 years, or somewhat it is cheaper than pay as you go. So these companies always like to go with 1 year or 3 years consumption model. So here you can see that CapEx is almost gone. There is no capital expenditure involved when a company goes with platform as a service. So under platform as a service in Azure, what we have two databases, two kinds of databases, right? One is Azure SQL and another is Sql Managed Instance, right? We have two kinds of databases that is available under platform as a service, right? So we don't have to worry about that on which server it is running, in which data center it is running, right? On what operating system it is running, how that VM has been virtualized, whether with hypervisor or VMware, you don't have to worry about, right? So in this model, platform as a service, a company does not have to, spend in capex, right? And operational cost is opex is also lesser here, because now companies does not need network experts to run the data centers. Companies does not need experts for storage. Companies does not need VMware experts, right? Or virtualized environment, experts. Companies does not need experts of Windows or Linux operating system administrators. Companies does not need experts from middleware administrator. Companies does not need even experts of I mean that experts of what I would say is to establish the runtime environment, how to establish that. So these all comes under operational cost that is also reduced. So it's a big saving for any company. That's why company decide to go with platform as a service for most of the time. And on what basis, especially for SQL Server, we decide to go with infrastructure as a service, that is SQL Server hosted on a VM, or SQL Server will be any kind of managed service, that is Azure SQL or SQL Managed Instance. It depends upon the assessment that you do actually in the real life, right? And that assessment we usually do with a tool that is freely downloaded from Microsoft, that is DMA. I will, if time will allow, I will try to download that tool and will try to perform an assessment and migration too. So that is fine. That is platform as a service, right? So it depends upon the assessment result. We decide whether SQL Server will be re-platformed or rehosted. When I say rehosted, means that it will go on infrastructure as a service. That is, we will order a VM. On the VM, we will install SQL Server, right? So we are going with infrastructure as a service model. So Azure also supports SQL Server in infrastructure as a service model, meaning that you have to order a VM. On the VM, you must have a SQL Server license to install that. You install SQL Server and you work almost in the same way as your users were working or doing in the on-premise environment, because now SQL Server is on VM. But here it is somewhat different, right? On PaaS, you don't have the knowledge on which VM, in which reason, but on which data center it is running, you don't know, right? So you will have more clarity when I will talk about Azure regions and availability zones. Then ultimately, we have a model that is known as software as a service, where companies have to only pay what they consume, right? So this is very similar to the electricity that you consume at your home, right? You are not worried, or you do not think that you don't have to think about how the electricity is produced, where it is produced, how it is coming over the wires, right, through poles, ultimately to your house. You simply consume it and you pay for that, and you don't have to think about its manageability and maintainability, how the electric department is maintaining that. You don't have to worry about it. So that is software as a service. Nothing is involved here. No No OPEX is there, no CAPEX is there. The only thing is that what you consume, you have to pay. The best example of software as a service is the 365, Outlook 365 that you consume, right? Or the Gmail service that you consume as a mail service, right? Or some you might have heard about some web services, right? The best example is a calculator. You have the web calculator, right? That is the service you can think. Many of the users can consume that at the same time. So this is what your software as a service is there. You simply have to consume the software such as Office 365 you can consume, right? Likewise, you have other services too that you can simply consume, such as Power BI embedded is there. There are different flavors of Power BI is also there that you can consume as a service, right? So I hope that now you have a good clarity on these three models: infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and then software as a service. Any question here? No question? Okay. Then let's talk about what Azure is basic, right? So we all know that Azure is a cloud. It is a public cloud, right? And it is a public cloud, and this cloud is nothing but an integration of, computing devices, storage devices. When I say computing devices, that refers to your CPU and RAM, right? Then storage devices, networking devices, and there are different softwares. Those are running on these devices, right? So ultimately, services are provided to the customer as service, right? Those services are provided to customer as different services. So you have some computing services, you have storage services, right? You have analytics services, you have machine learning services. Different services are there that users can consume, right? Every cloud supports, the three models, that is infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. So if we talk about SQL Server, it is available in two service models here. That is infrastructure as a service, where you have to order a VM with an operating system such as Windows Server 19, and then you have to host or install SQL Server on that. It can be 16, 17, or 19 SQL Server version that you can install. Then SQL Server is also available as platform as a service in terms of Azure SQL, that is for single databases, and then managed SQL instance, that is for instance level capability. You don't have SQL Server available as software as service anywhere, right? Not only in Azure, not anywhere, right? It is not available for you. So what I would say that Azure is a public cloud, and any cloud basically consists of multiple data centers. The idea behind is that, right? Those data centers are in different regions. Let us come here. So we have different regions in Azure, right? You can see here. In US, we have East US, and then we have Central US also, right? And West US also. Three regions are there in US. You can see in Brazil we have one region there in South Brazil. Right, in Australia we have in South Australia, in Africa, that is in Africa, in East North, right? So in Middle East we have in Qatar. In different uh, you know regions we have different data centers, and let's now try to understand in every region we have some availability zones. These are also known as zones commonly, but these are availability zones. Uh, in most of the regions, say for example, this is my East US region, right? So in the East US region, I Microsoft have three availability zones. In one availability zone, many people think that there is only one data center. That is not true. There may be more than one data center in one availability zone, and these availability zones are basically connected with fiber optics. Uh, you know, And the objective behind is that whatever resource you have, say for example, in availability zone one, say for example, I am ordering a Azure SQL database here, right? So its two additional copies should be available in different availability zones. So for any reason, this availability zone, the data center in this availability zone, goes down, then in that case, automatic failover should occur in any of the availability zone, 2 or 3, and my service should continue. That is the objective behind that, right? The distance between the availability zones are decided on the basis of the latency. So the latency should not be more than 2 milliseconds. That is a hard and fast rule that has been followed by Microsoft to make the services highly available, right? So now I think that you have some clarity on the reason. In each of the reason, you have 3 availability zones. Most of the regions are, zone redundant. That is the term used. So that is why when you order the Azure SQL database, right? Basically, you can opt an option to make it zone redundant, right? You have the option to make it geo redundant as well. We will talk about that later on. So that is the concept here of the regions and availability zone, right? Then the concept, I will not talk that. This a lot of theory we have talked here. So let us go ahead after understanding a few basics, right? Let's talk about the syllabus somewhat faster. So important things is now you have understanding of cloud deployment model, right? That is our infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Azure regions availability zone. You have to understand the Azure availability set concept also, and you have to understand the concept of virtual network, that is VNet and subnet, right? So there will be a separate class on this. Once you have a good understanding on this, right, you can understand what is the meaning of this, right? The meaning, the objective of having the VNet and subnet is to secure your services, right? Whatever you are consuming, you have to provision your service, say for example, Azure single database or Sql Managed Instance under a particular VNet, under a particular subnet that comes under a VNet, right? Or whatever is there, whether it is VNet. So when I say what a VNet is that, so in a nutshell, I can say that it's a range of IP addresses that you are going to reserve for your use. We will have more. So usually it's a larger range of IP addresses, and subnets are what in that larger range. range of IP address, or you are making chunks of IP addresses, right? As per your requirement. Say, for example, when you are going to uh, provision a SQL managed instance, right? So you need at least 32 IP addresses for that. So your subnet should contain at least 40 IP addresses in that case, in simple managed instance, right? Some additional there, or at least 32 uniques IP addresses in that, right? So the objective of creating the VNet is to create to reserve a range of IP address or addresses, or that is known as CIDR address space, classless internet, CIDR. So the objective of VNet is to reserve a set of larger chunks of IP addresses, and then to allocate smaller chunks of IP addresses to different subnets, which you will reserve for or create for different kinds of services, some for your database services, some for your application services, right? You will reserve for that. And Azure SQL database architecture is somewhat different than the usual architecture that you have been, working or learning on premise SQL Server that we will talk. So how the request flows in Azure SQL database that we will talk, how you can provision Azure SQL database. We will try to provision Azure SQL database today, right? And how to connect Azure SQL database from Azure portal, from Management Studio, from Azure Studio, that you all will learn, right? And how to connect, and then how to query. So once you get connected, you can query your database as you have been querying your own database, apart from some difference in system system views, right? And some DMVs, those are different. We will talk during the course. Then we will learn about managing the SQL database, provisioning and managing SQL database. What are the different purchasing models we have for Azure SQL and SQL Managed Database? We have two different purchasing models, DTU and vCore. So we will learn about what DTU mean, right? 100 DTU is equals to 1 vCore, right? And what the vCore means, right? So these all things we will learn, provisioning and these all things, SQL Managed Instance. Then we will learn about migrating SQL Server database to Azure. This is the most important topic or burning topic, right, in the market. When you are going to face the interview, you will be asked most of the questions from migration. So you can see this is the largest topic that we have here, right? You can see. So there comes the important role of DMA, how to run the DMA, then how to analyze the blockers, right? And then how to decide with what model we should go. We should go with Azure SQL database or SQL Managed Instance, or not at all we can go. So we will have to have to learn about the comparative features of SQL Server versus Azure SQL versus Managed SQL Instance. Then once we have the feature, compatibility and ability knowledge, we can do better assessment and analysis, right? So then we are talking about different, different methods of migrating SQL Server to Azure SQL or SQL Managed Instance. So for Azure SQL, we have a few migration approaches or methods that Azure SQL supports. The first is your DMA tool. Using that, you can migrate your database, but that is not used for large databases. It is suggested to run them against small databases up to 5 or 10 GB, not more than that. Then you have the concept of backpack file. Using that, you can migrate your database. You have the concept of transaction replication, where your on-premise SQL Server database can act as a publisher, and your Azure SQL can act as a subscriber. Your Azure SQL cannot be a publisher, right? But you know in advance that for transaction replication, there is a criteria that you must have a primary key in every table. So most of the time it is not acceptable. Log shipping is not supported here in Azure SQL database, but yes, of course, that is supported in Managed SQL instance, right? So in Managed import export wizard, you can do also here. Using the SQL Server data tools, using the import and export method, you can migrate the data as well. Now, then the data migration service, DMS, that is known as Azure Data Migration Service, right, is basically the best service that is provided by Azure to migrate your data almost without downtime, right? We will learn about that. So more focus will be on migration, and so for migration on managed instances concerned, you can do that migration through Azure Data Migration Service or through backup and restore, right? So backup and restore is somewhat tricky, where you have to copy your on-premise backup to a storage account. On the storage account, where you will put your backup in a container. In that container, for that backup database, you will have to create a SAS key. Then using that SAS key in the managed instance, you have to create the credential. And after creating the credential, using that credential, you can restore your database. So these are the different approaches. Yes, of course, transaction replication is also supported there. We will explore these all during the course, right? Then what are the different backup methods we have available in SQL Server for Azure SQL database and SQL Managed Instance that we will talk. Basically, backups are automated. You don't have to worry about that, right? But you have to think about the backup retention period, right? What will be the backup retention period for that? That you have to think about, and how you can perform manual backup, that we will also talk, and how you can restore from the automatic backup or the manual backup that you have taken. So how you can restore your database using that. Then this is about the retention, right? So you can see here that what are the different restore types, basically, that we have from where we can do the point in time recovery. Then how to secure. This is the most important thing, that your database must be secure. So the first thing that comes in my mind, that SQL authentication should be discarded, and Azure Active Directory integrated authentication should be encouraged for your security purposes. Second thing is that some firewall rules must be applied on your server level and database level, right? Then your client IPs must be whitelisted. We'll talk these all things. Apart from that, we have some certain kinds of roles there on server level and database level roles to provide the granular level control for security purposes, that we will talk. And it supports data masking, dynamic data masking, that we will also talk about, right? So these are the things that we have here. Then we have wonderful feature here, the scaling up and down, right? So as the workload increases, right, we can scale up, or we have, serverless database concept also. So that we can avail, right, for scaling in or out as per the requirement we can do for our Azure SQL database and Managed SQL instance. We have not yet talked about the service tiers. right, under the purchasing model. We will talk about that. Then you have some concept of elastic pool for the databases also, right? So, and elastic jobs also, because Azure SQL does not support SQL agent jobs. So there are different methods I will talk about, right? The best method people are preferring that they have their one of the VM hosted in Azure, and there they are hosting SQL Server, and then they are creating different jobs under SQL agent, and from there they are running on their single databases, because creating jobs through runbook and then putting it through elastic job agent is somewhat complex, but still we will talk about that, right? Then this is very important. High availability is almost available for all your SQL databases that is inbuilt for Azure SQL database and for SQL Managed Instance. But we have to learn, because this is asked in interview, how high availability is achieved in Azure SQL and SQL Managed Instance. So we have to learn about its internal architecture and automatic failover, how that happens. How the database recovery has been fastened in Azure SQL database and SQL Managed Instance using accelerated database recovery. This concept is also available from SQL Server 2019, right? So hence SQL Server, hence Azure SQL and SQL Managed Database always uses the latest and stable version that Microsoft claims. So definitely accelerated database recovery is there. This recovery process is somewhat different than the usual recovery process of the database that has 3 phases. You might be knowing: analysis, then roll forward and roll back. 3 processes are there for database recovery. So that here's process are somewhat different, and it goes really very faster. Then what does the zone redundant mean? We will talk how we can achieve disaster recovery for our SQL Azure single database and SQL Managed Instance databases, right? That we will talk. So we have a standard geo-replication, we have active geo-replication, right? Then we have auto failover groups, which is internally very similar to your always on. So we'll have hands-on on this. We will talk these all things. And then finally, we have monitoring and how to tune Azure SQL database if you have any performance issue, or how you can better tune that for performance. Those are the things here. So for monitoring, you have Azure Monitor there. You have Azure Insight there, and using the Azure Insight, basically Azure Insight, query performance insight, and basically uses query store inside it, along with some artificial intelligence that was put inside that. So if you have understanding on query store, you can easily understand query performance insight, how to create alerts and send the mails, right? So different things are there that is available for your monitoring and tuning purposes. We will talk these all things, right? So I have tried to almost cover all the aspects, but once again, I'm repeating that most of the questions you will be asked for migration prospect in your interview. So if you think to clear the interview, you should have some basic understanding of Azure plus Azure SQL and some hands-on on migration of the database. So during the course, we will understand the basic concepts, we will implement that, and especially we will focus on migrating the database through different methods, through backpack, through import and export wizard, through DMA, and through data migration service, through backup and restore for SQL Managed Instance. These all methods, log sitting and transaction replication. We will learn about these all methods. So once and before that, I will tell you about assessment also. That is very important part before the migration. So before migration, you have to assess the database, you have to find out the blockers, and then you have to conclude from the report that what are the different kinds of blockers we have, what are its remediation, and then what to you have to decide that where to go, whether to go with SQL Server hosted on a VM or SQL or Azure SQL or SQL Managed Instance. That you can decide. After that, you will have to decide with how many number of DTUs, with how many number. If not going with DTU model, then with how many vCores, on what basis. You will have to compare with your source compute capability, that is number of CPUs and the memory size. All these things you have to think about. So a lot of things are there. Migration, there is an approach. There are certain steps that we'll talk about, right? So this is all from the syllabus, right? That we will talk there during the course. Now, any question? Hello? Anyone has any question? Okay, so how many?
What is the duration of course and fee structure?
Okay, so the duration of course will be 4 to 6 weekends. 4 to 6 weekends means that 3 hours, and the timing is 4 p.m. IST to 7 p.m. IST, right? And the course fee is 12K in INR. So this is about the timing. Sometimes it finishes in 4 weekends. Sometimes it takes 5 or 6 weekends. Even it will take more, right? I'm not worried about that. We have to complete the syllabus. More you will be eager to learn, more the things I will deliver, right? Apart from this, if anything comes as per your requirement in your environment, you let me know. I will cover that also. I will be happy to cover that. Right? Any other question?
Yeah, hi Neeraj, Ganesh. You will provide a SOP as well, right?
Yes. For all topics, you will be provided with the documents, right? Anything else? No. Okay then. So I will go a little bit faster now. And one thing I would say, if you are new to Azure, nothing to be panicked, nothing to be worried, right? The only thing is that you have to get acquainted with this interface first. This is all, everything is, interface based. Right now, I am working in a project where we have different ARM templates. Say, for example, for provisioning Azure SQL with Windows, not with Windows, Azure Active Directory Authentication, Azure Active Directory Integrated Authentication, right? So for that, we have an ARM template, right? Azure Resource Manager template we have. And we are creating Azure SQL database from the Confluence, right? Confluence is basically a DevOps approach from the web interface, where you have to run some certain, post commands. Post is a method actually. It works on API. So through post, you have to call a particular API to provision a SQL managed instance, Azure SQL database or a SQL managed instance. In what mode you want, that you can also do. And the DTU model, with how many DTU, DTUs on the vCode, with how many vCodes you can do that. So things are changing. My next objective would also be to deliver some classes using the DevOps approach, especially with Confluence. And I also worked with GitLab, right? So in GitLab, we have one thing that is GitLab Runner, where we can create jobs in terms of steps in a project. Those jobs will be in the PowerShell script. So that if I execute a job in the GitLab Runner, that will do my task, right? That will provision my SQL database, right? That will import the data, or that can create Sql Managed Instance, or that can create a VM on that can host a SQL Server, that can restore the database. Everything can be automated. So that is the next plan. It will take some time also. I am learning those all things still. So
I have one small doubt here. I just wanted to know, like the Azure SQL software is different from the traditional what we install on our servers. Is it different or it's the same one?
what I would say that it's miniature, version of your database engine, right? Basically, the database engine is almost same, right?
Mhm.
The database, the core component is your database engine, right? Where you
Yes.
have on the first layer, you have protocols, then you have query processor engine, then you have a storage engine, right? Then you have SQL OS. These are the things there. So under a storage engine, these all things are there, right?
Yes.
So it's Azure SQL database. Basically, it's I would say that it's a miniature version of the SQL Server, because it does not provide you all the features that SQL Server on-premise supports or provides you. Like, that's why I'm saying that's a miniature version. In Azure SQL, you can't establish, always on. You can't establish log sitting. You can't establish replication. Although a database created in Azure SQL can be a subscriber of transaction replication, but it cannot be a publisher, right?
Okay, so in that case, if on premise, if you are running any always on feature, so the same system, if we want to migrate to Azure, then we need to install on VMs.
Yeah,
rather than going to Azure SQL.
But you will have to think at the same time, right, that why you are you have configured your databases under always on, right? The objective, the objective is to achieve high availability. If you have DR node, then the objective is to achieve disaster recovery in very lesser time, right? That is the objective, right?
Exactly.
So high availability is inbuilt in every database, right? And for DR, you can you can configure your database to a different reason using active geo-replication or auto failover groups that you can do. So it's not hard and fast that if your on-premise SQL Server is hosted on VMs, where SQL Server is configured with always on, you go ahead and in Azure also you order the VM, then you configure a host SQL Server there, and then you configure always on, because you can achieve high availability in build. Right here, you don't have to do anything. Only you have to think about your disaster recovery, approach, and that is well supported in both cases, in Azure SQL and in managed instance, both. And the same question, actually, you didn't ask question on that level. The same question was asked by my client, that why I should switch over from always on, that is always on to SQL Managed Instance. majorly. It was somewhat costlier, but when I saw them, when I showed them about the SLA, right, against RTO and RPO, they were very happy, and they finally opted to go with Sql Managed Instance. You got what I explained?
Yeah, in case of any recovery, like primary goes down, if you want to recover the secondary, the time took for the recovery compared to both the
yeah, we will
scenarios.
implement those all things here, right?
Yeah. Great.
And in Azure, one more complexity is there which always on, that is with the AG listener, you will have to configure some additional load balancer there, right? Internal or external load balancer as per the requirement. You will have to configure. Simply, you cannot create ability group listener. That is the restriction here, right? So let us try to go ahead somewhat faster. While some terms will come, I will not explain. My objective is right now to show you. So what you have to do, here you have the search place, or if you click on this button here, this is known as your marketplace, where different services are there. Whatever you see, almost these all are the services, right? So different services are there, right? And the best way that you want to avail a service is to search it from your search box. I'm going to home. So on home, these are the services that it's saying, showing right now, Azure SQL database, quick start, center, right? Virtual machines, app services, storage accounts, Azure Cosmos DB, Kubernetes services, more services. If you click, that will come here under the more service. So the first thing, that if you don't have a Azure SQL account, I will help you in creating, right? That you can create for free, but with some limited features. You can't create SQL Managed Instance using that free subscription. So if you are really eager to learn, right, so first try to create a free account. After that, convert that free account for a few months, 1 to 3 months for developer account. For that, almost you will have to pay 2,000 to 2,400 rupees per month. If you really want to learn, you should do that. I will guide you in that. So what you have to do, whatever service you want to avail, that you simply have to find here. I want to create Azure SQL single database. So I'm typing here Azure SQL. It comes as a service here. And here I have to click on create button. How many of you have created this? Here you see that I have 3 variations of the SQL service here. SQL databases as single database. If I click on drop down arrow, I can have a single database in Elastic Pool. I can create a database server, and under that database server, this database server will be a logical server. Without my knowledge, it will be created. I will not have any idea that on which VM, with what IP, in what data center this database server was created. So basically, it's a logical server. And under this server, you can create multiple databases. So right now, I am going to create a single database, that is Azure single database. In the next class, we will have a comparative study among the features of SQL Server hosted on virtual machine versus SQL Managed Instance versus Azure SQL database. So let us go ahead and create a single database here. Now the first thing is here that comes is, today I created this account. I'm not sure whether it will work fine. Why it is throwing an error in basic. Okay, let us try that. So your subscription will reflect here. You can see I created it as pay as you go. So this is my subscription here. I don't have any resource group. What is a resource group actually? For that, you have to understand the hierarchy. In a nutshell, I am telling you that on the top, you have management. Just a minute. On the second level, you have subscription. On the third level, you have resource groups. Where is that? You can see on the top level in the hierarchy, you have, if you have some idea of Windows, let us try to understand in this way. On the top, you have forest. Under the forest, you have domains. Under the domains, you have organizational units. Under the organizational units, you have groups. Under the groups, you have users and computer objects. Am I correct? How many of you know about that? Hello? Do you have that idea? Guys?
Yes, Neeraj, I think so.
Okay, so that is the hierarchy that we have in Windows environment, where we have multiple domains in the forest. We can have, right, in the forest, we can have only one domain, or we can have more than one domain. Under the domain, we can have organizational units. Under organizational units, we can have groups. Under groups, we can have users and computer objects. Likewise, here on the top hierarchy, you have management groups. Under the management groups, you can have multiple subscriptions, right? So my subscription was there, pay as you go, right? That you saw there. Then under the subscriptions, you have resource groups. So this resource is nothing but whatever the resources you will create while you are creating a service, you need some resources. For example, I am creating Azure single database. So I will need some resource such as I will need a NIC, network interface card, that will have some internally an IP address assigned, right? That is one resource. I will need some storage. So storage will be one resource. I will need some, VNet, that is under which virtual network or under which address range it will be created. Under that VNet, I need one subnet, that under which subnet, the smaller range of the IP addresses under which that will be created, right? So these are the resources that will be created under the resource group. What is the beauty of resource group is that your resource group is a container for your resources. So instead of deleting all the resources when you don't need one by one, you can delete your resource group at once, and your all resources created under that resource group will be deleted, right? That is the main advantage of that. And then under resource group, you have resources. So that is what you see here is your subscription here. Pay as you go. I don't have created any resource group, so let us create that, right? And just keep a name here. For example, I'm creating SQL resource group. So name it SQL RSG. You can give any name, but your name should be meaningful, right? Okay. That is done. It got created. Then it is asking me to enter the database name, right? So let us give a database name. For example, I am giving it here SQL demo DB. Is it accepted? Yes. It should be in a smaller case and should be a unique one. Then I have not created a server. I was talking about this database server. It's a logical server. Where, in which data center it will be created, I don't know. Somewhere at some point it will ask me for the reason. I will show you. But let us go ahead and create a logical server first. So enter the server name. So I am giving this SQL Server for any name you can give for single databases. Okay. You can see here this server will be prefixed with database.windows.net. This will be the URL right, for this server name, using which I will access this server from my management studio. So let us go ahead. Now you see here location. That is what I explained when I was explaining about the reason. Basically, these are the reasons that you have. The specified server name is already in use. Okay, so let's make it 2022. Is it fine? Yes, it is fine. Now click on this drop down arrow and see these are the different regions that you have. We have the concept of paired region as well. We will talk about paired regions. We have the concept of VNet peering as well. VNet peering is different than region pairs, right? So we will talk about the time will come. We will talk about VNet peering as well. So here, these are the different reasons, right, in which I am going to create my database. I am going to select STUS, but here you see, I don't have any clue here that in which availability zone, in which data center this server will be, logical server will be created. I have only idea of the reason. Location is your reason. So I selected that. That's fine. I don't have Active Directory configured right now. Right, later we will configure an Azure Active Directory here, and then we will see how we can, provision a Azure single database that will allow only Azure Active Directory integrated users, right, to be authenticated to this database. But right now I don't have, so I'm going with SQL authentication. That will work fine. Server admin, this is the server admin for this logical server that I'm creating. So I'm giving some name here. Say for example, I am giving the name here. It is Soumya, and let us give some password. So what happened? Is it accepted? No, it should be, I think, 15 characters long. What it's saying, the password must be at least 8 characters in length. Okay, so 8 characters is not 8 characters. Say for example, MISHRE. Should go fine, yes. That went fine. Okay, so we are done here. But in the previous page, did we configure the logical server? No. Okay, let us do that. What's wrong here? Never. So up to this point, server we are done. This logical server is created. Under this logical server, we can create multiple databases. Want to use SQL Elastic Pool? We will talk that later on. No, right now. A workload environment. This is development, not production for me. Then here, with how many vCores you want to go, what are the different service tier? We will talk next. Not today. I think that it will be too late if I start to talk about service tiers. So under Azure SQL, we have basically, see, you have two purchasing models, DTU and you have vCore models, right? So DTU is usually cheaper than vCore models, where you have, lesser compute requirement. You can go with the DTU purchasing model instead of going with one vCore. I have seen many databases which are only 200 MB in size, 500 MB in size. I recently have seen for a few applications for big client. And there if we recommend them to go with vCore, so at least they will go with one vCore. That will be more costlier than if they go with 10 or 20 DTUs, right? So you have different models here. but our preference will be always go with the vCore models that is right now in use. Under the vCore model, you have 3 purchasing models. That is general purpose, hyperscale, and business critical, right? The hyperscale tier is the most costliest one and the most fastest one. We will talk about that. Under the GTU purchasing model, you have 3 models available. That is basic, standard, and premium. Premium is the highest one. So as per the workload, we have to select, and as per the workload and cost, right? We have to select these models. So I'm going with general purpose right now, right? This by default is serverless. I will talk about this serverless. This is the very good thing where I don't have predicted workload, right? I don't know that when my workload will increase, when my workload will decrease. I can go with serverless. That will be better. So that is build per second. My compute can expand. That is the number of vCores can expand by itself. I'm going with provision right now. And then your computer hardware. You should go with the latest hardware, right? So it is going Gen 5 supports up to 80 vCores under general purchasing model, general purpose purchasing model. And I can have up to 408 GB memory, but I'm not going with that. I can define that here as well, right? So save money here. It is for the license. If I have license for my on-premise SQL Server, I can avail that here. During the billing, I can mention my license number and I can save the cost. Since I don't have, right, I'm just specifying no. So this is also known as Azure Hybrid Benefit. Azure Hybrid Benefit means that if you have your license for on-premise SQL Server, you can avail that license benefit in terms of monetary benefit here while you are ordering for Azure SQL or Managed Instance. So I'm going with 2 vCores. The highest one here is 80. Under general purpose, you can have 80 vCores, right? And I am going with minimum disk size for the data file right now. So it is 32 GB right now. I don't have plan to host more than that. And out of 32 GB, almost I would say near about 1/3 of the total space will be allocated to my log file, right? So that is fine. Would you like to make this database zone redundant? You see here, that is what I taught, that when you provision a SQL database, right, you can choose its high availability, or you should always go with this high availability. If again, it depends on the cost, and it depends upon the nature of application which is accessing your database, whether it is brown, silver, or gold application. If it is gold application, you should go with yes. Right now I'm going with no because my cost will be more there, so I'm going with no right now. Let us apply this and then come to the networking. So next section is it. This is already selected. This is for backup, right? So I want this locally redundant, right? Zone redundant will be more costlier. Geo redundant will be even more costly. We'll talk more on that. Then under the networking now, it will ask me, is it asking me for VNet or not? No. So under the networking, right now, I don't have any VM created here. So I will access this through public endpoint from my laptop. I will try to access it. So I'm going with public endpoint, but usually when you create Azure single database for your companies, this should be not preferred. You should go with a private endpoint. We will talk about private endpoint, how to create it. Then allow Azure services and resources to access this server. No, right now I don't have any server, but if you have some application server, right, or other services that such as on some VMs, you have Power BI, right, or you have Azure Synapse Analytics, those want to access this, right, you should check that. Add current client IP address. In this case, I will go with yes, because the laptop that I'm connected with right now, I will run my Management Studio, and through Management Studio, I will connect to this instance. So that will my laptop current IP, which is provided by my internet provider, should be added in this. We can add this later on also, but here I am selecting this. Connection policy, go with the default. And minimum TLS version, it is saying TLS 1.2. This is for data in transit, right? Next. I'm not interested in Defender right now, so not now. I'm not trying to figure out, I don't need Ledger. I don't have any identity created right now. So go ahead, see the additional settings, what it is saying. And I want to create a, say for example, no database, none. I don't want to create any database here, right? So that's fine. And this is the collation, right? That you can specify. By default, this is the collation that is basically used, and this is the maintenance window that you are specifying under this maintenance window, right? This Azure SQL instance can be maintained because it's a logical server. It is hosted on some VM. That VM is in a availability zone. That availability zone is in a data center. So data center needs some maintenance, and monthly or quarterly maintenance is required. So that's why you have to specify the system default downtime and for maintenance window. And for this also, if you have a subscription, right, you can talk to Microsoft to have your own maintenance window also. So this was the question asked by one of the architects when I was in a meeting, that does Microsoft allow to have the customized maintenance window for services? The answer was yes. For SQL database and Azure Managed Instance and Azure Synapse Analytics, yes, they do have. Next tab, we don't have to do review and create. So this will be the cost, right? Monthly, I will have to pay. What I will do, I will create it, I will deliver my demo, and I will delete it tonight itself to save my cost. I don't need it, right? Everything is fine. Let us go ahead and create it. So it's validating, and it has started with deployment. So you see here behind the scenes what resources it will create. It will take some time. Meanwhile, if you have any question, feel free to ask. So today is the demo class. This is the only one demo class that I'm delivering for this batch. A lot of people have already requested. A few of them have not attended. They're not in this class, but they already have, registered in the course. So the batch will start from Saturday. This will be the weekend batch, Saturday and Sunday, right? And we will have classes from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. IST. And this time suits also to people who are outside from India. So anyone is there outside from India?
Yes, Niraj, I'm in the US, but this weekend batch for this month might be clashing with work, so I'll see how it works out.
Okay. This is Shiraz. I think
Yes.
Nabil is also there.
Niraj, yes, I'm
Nabil
from USA.
is from US.
Sir, I'm from UAE.
What's a good name?
Sir, Reshma.
Oh, you are in UAE, right? I thought you were
Yeah,
in
yes,
Chennai.
sir. No, no.
4 p.m. will be fine to you with you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. You joined somewhat late, right? Reshma? Today you
Yes,
joined
yes,
somewhat
yeah,
late.
right, John. Yeah, I had some internet problem, so I had to join.
So you are in Dubai or in Abu Dhabi?
Abu Dhabi.
Okay. So the deployment is complete. Go to the resource now. That will be interesting. And here the first thing that you have to understand, I am unable to discuss all the things today. Why it is creating problem? Why it is creating problem? Why it went there? Okay, come to the home, all services. Type in here now Azure SQL. What is that? And you see here that got created. SQL demo DB. This is my database. This is my server that got created, right? SQL, what is this? Let us expand it. This is my SQL Server database, right? That got created. So let us go to this database now. That is the logical server we have here. And this is my database SQL demo DB that got created. And the most important thing is here. This is the server name or the URL using which you can connect to this database, right? So I have now try to connect to here, go to connect. Maybe we will face some challenge while trying to connect, but we will give a try. I have SQL user there and I defined a user there with the name Shamya, password. Let us try to create it, but before that, let me check something here. Let's try to create this with default first. And input connection should be there. Additional connection parameters I don't need. Do we have something related to my protocols? Is it not there? Network protocol, yes, it's preferable. Recently, I was trying to connect to SQL Azure single database with SQL Management Studio, where my VM was in Azure in same VNet itself, but it was not connecting. So I tried with this TCP IP and it went fine. So let us do that. Here is the name of my database server and user, SQL Server Authentication user, and this. You can see here Active Directory integrated. This will work only when I have Azure Active Directory and there I have users created there. Active Directory with password, it will ask for the password along with the Active Directory username. And this will ask for either user for a call on the phone, or it will ask for the additional passcode, right? That is SMS message will come there. But we are going with SQL Server Authentication here. So now here I am going with the password. And let us see how it goes. I allowed the public interface to connect, right? So it is going fine. I allowed and it worked fine. It got connected here, right? So if I go to the database, I have a SQL demo DB, right? And nothing is here. If you expand the system database, you will have only master database here. No other databases are listed here, right? Then you have under security, you will have only one login here. This is the server admin, right? So I have a database here, SQL Demo DB. And now I want to transfer some data from here. Should we go ahead? It's late for anyone? Hello? I don't have even any database here. Let me first restore that quickly. Device, where is my backup? So I am restoring this on my on-premise database so that I can transfer that database or migrate that database to the Azure single database. That is what I'm trying to do. Where is that? I don't remember. Do you have something in backup folder? It's backup files with back extension. All files. Let me find it out here quickly. F-drive backup, yes, we have here. F-drive backup. So I have to go to F-drive backup. I can check this backup here. Okay, let us do that. I think it is done. Oh, failed. Backup database. What happened? System data SQL client engineers cannot be restored over the existing. The issue that is stored command. What is the part? F-drive data. Okay, let us delete that. F-drive data. Whatsoever is there. We will delete that. Continue. That got deleted. And now let us keep a try here. Okay. And so next time maybe it will create error for what? That is done. What should I do? Why okay is not highlighted? Okay, let me check for log also. Do we have log folder? Just delete this up. It may be problematic. It is done. Now let us cancel that. It is cancelled. Come to database, restore the database. Then device. Come here, add. Then F-drive, right? F-drive, backup. Should go fine this time. Okay. Done. It's okay. That's good. All are here from the beginning. I thought it is late, so people will start to drop. Okay, that's fine. Meanwhile, this is going on. How many of you have used DMA? If you have not used DMA, that is known as Data Migration Assistant. And that is the only tool we have available from Microsoft that ships with that ships free to do the assessment of the database before you migrate. So today we will do the assessment and also we will migrate, right? So go to the Google and you should always download the latest version of DMA. The older version of DMA will not work, right? Data Migration Assistant download, right? Well, it's not coming. It's authentic site. The latest version is 5.6. It seems you should always download from the Microsoft. Let us go here. It's from download. And here 5.6 download. Thank you for downloading Microsoft Database Migration Assistant. It is being downloaded. It's an MSI file. 5 seconds left. 6 seconds left. What it is? 2 seconds, 0 seconds. So I will go to downloads folder. Let it be completed. It's a very small utility. Oh, it's taking done. Okay, it is done. So let us go to downloads. It's running slow. Where is this when be stored? This has made it slow. Actually, it has a large table. I did some mistake here. I should not have restored this. It has a table with billions of rows. This has made it slower somewhat. So store, download. It's opening somewhat slower. Here is my database migration assistant. Let us double click on it. This restoration has made it slow. It's 90%. When it will be 100%, it will go into the public phases. That will also take some time. Okay, wait for a few minutes. Let's start. Okay. Very good. This has made this process work. Meanwhile, you all do one thing, you ping your email ID. I will send the syllabus, the recording with all of you. You can go through that. Or if anybody needs, you can send it there. Go ahead and ping your email IDs. Otherwise, I will be not able to decide to whom to send, whom to not. There's the chat here. You can ping your email ID in this chat. Oh, it's really slow. Only 2 persons had pinged their email ID. I would request you all to ping so that you can get regular updates as well from me. What's the time? I'm surprised. No, it has come here. Oh, next. Oh, I accept. Next. Stop. What I can do, boy, I can create a small database if it is taking time. Right. It says maybe it's very slow.
Hi, Niraj, I have a question.
Yeah, tell me.
What will be the difference between Azure Data Studio and Data Migration Assistant? I think both of them you can use it for migration, right? So,
What you first spell out, data migration service.
a data migration assistant, what you're using now, what you're installing now is data migration.
No, that is same. Data migration assistant, DMA, D for data, M for migration, A for assistant. Both
Okay,
are
and
same. Another is
okay.
data migration service, DMS.
Service. Yes.
So using database migration service, your downtime is very less, right?
Okay. Yes.
It keep your source and target in sync, right?
Yes.
So it reduces the downtime when you have to think about the cutover time.
Okay.
Where it is very minimum, you should go with DMS. That is the preferred methods. But all applications do not need, very critical downtime, very less downtime.
Yes.
And where applications are where databases are very less in size. Right now, I am migrating a 200 database, a 200 MB database, right?
Yes.
Why do we avail that DMS? DMS is a service that's chargeable, right? DMA is a free utility. I can use it for free. So if application is of branch class or class C application, and its databases are small, I can go with DMA. Where the downtime is very less, database is also large in size, I should go with DMS.
Okay.
Is it completed? No, no. So what I'm going to do, let us create a database. For example, create database test. And then in this database, let us create go this database. I will create a table. Say, for example, create slow TABLE table or T1 one with only one column. I am creating. Say, for example, C1 or INT. This is my create spelling is wrong, right? CREATE create. And I'm inserting of row only here. Insert into T1 values. Say for example 100. So slow. Oh, this dear store has consumed my time. Now the system is in hang state. What should I do? What to close? Okay, it's 100. Just do that thing. So it will create a database test. I'll change the database context here to test. Create a table, insert on the code here. That's fine. If what is this? Yes. Okay. Meanwhile, it is also completed, right? So this database is big in size. So let us try to run this DMA once it is installed to migrate this small database with only one table and column, right? At least you will see how we can use the DMA to migrate databases, right? You will have the idea. That is my objective here. So it is finished. Now I have two databases here. You can see test and AdventureWorks. I will go with test first. And I will migrate this database here. You can see here, I don't have any database like test here. This database is here. So what I'm going to do now, I am going to start my DMA. So I will type in DMA. And here you see data migration assistant is here. Let's start it. So once it will start, we will start a new project here. So I'm not going to for assessment right now. I'm just going for the migration right now. We will talk about assessment later on when we will do the assessment of a larger database. So let it be started. So it got started here. You have to click on plus button to start a new project. Click on plus button. And then for assessment, if you want to assess any source database for migration, I will talk that later on. Let us go with the migration, then you have to go with the assessment. Otherwise, you can go for migration. Give the name for your project. Say, for example, PRJ1. This is my first project. I'm giving the name. My source is my SQL Server, right? My source could be SQL Server. One more thing should come here. AWS RDS should come. Why it is not coming? Okay. Target server type should be, in this case, Azure SQL database, right? It is not a managed instance. I am migrating my database from on-premise to Azure SQL single database. So this will be my target type. My target type in this case will be not managed instance, not my virtual machine, not SQL Server in logical server. My target is Azure SQL database, right? So I want to migrate both my schema and data, right? For the DMS migration, first you have to migrate the schema, then you have to migrate the data. You have all options here. You can migrate a schema only, you can migrate data only, you can migrate a schema and data, but you can migrate data only when you have migrated the schema. Without migrating the schema, you cannot migrate your data. So a schema means the table and the other objects that you have under your schema, right? That is your schema, such as tables, in views, triggers, functions, all those things, right? So schema and data both I am going to migrate, create it. First is will ask me for the source server. So I will specify my source server here. The source server instance I will take from here, go to the properties, and from properties I can get it. This is my source server instance.
Again, with this one, can we migrate more than one database at a time or just
You
one?
can migrate only one database. Oh, sorry, you can migrate many databases at the same time. I'm sorry.
At a time, at the same time.
But you should not do that. So this is my instance name for the source server here. And I'm connecting to the source server using Windows authentication. I don't need to include the connection to connect it locally. Let's go ahead. Now it will ask me for the target database, right? So here on the source, I am first planning to migrate the test database. So I selected this. Then go to the next. It will ask me for the target server. Is it asking? Yes. So for target now, this comes here. And here it is. Just check the name of your database, SQL database, or your SQL database from here. That is your target server. Let us put it here, paste, and go with encrypt connection. I cannot do that, but in your environment, you should do that. Now, I do not have SQL or Windows authentication here. So I can go with SQL authentication, and I remember the name of user that we put here was Soumya. This was the password that I put. All that is done. So where is this? Now let us try to connect it. Yes, it got connected, right? So that's fine. And then go to next. So it's preparing source database schema. It is scripting out the source database schema. I have only one table there, so that will be listed here. Select an object to view. What's saying? Any issue found? So no issue found. What it's saying? This no collector, no. with other issues. So no blocking issue, no object issues there. Then generate the SQL script. For a schema, always the script is generated, because on target, those objects, your tables, views, stored procedures, right, all have to be created using the script. I did a good thing that I created a small database, otherwise it would take a lot of time. You can see here that it has created the script for creating that table here, right? So that it will do, and then deploy this schema first. So it will be deployed, this script will be deployed on the target database. That is done. Once that is done, then I can migrate the data. So click on migrate data, because this table is created there. So now it will internally use the BCP utility to copy that data from here to there. So start data migration. Only one record is there, that should be migrated very quickly here. Right, that got migrated. Migration complete, it's saying. One successful, 0 warning, 0 failed. Right now, what we have to do, let us go back and come to this database now. Let us refresh it. It did not have any table there. It was a blank database. We transferred one table with one record there, right, from the source. So that should be there. The migration has been completed for this. So it should be, as you see here, T1 table is here. I can see its rows here with select query. So one row is there, that should come here. 100, this value I put there. So my migration is completed. This is just a demo to show you that how DMA works for the migration. Okay. For the large database, it will take a lot of time for adventure works. So I'm not going with this. And we are too late here today also. So I'm wrapping up today's demo class session. We are starting the batch from Saturday. So those who are interested to join this batch from Saturday, they will have to deposit the course fee as 12 KINR. Those who are in ISA, they will have US, or they will have to pay $180. I will share my account details with all of you. Those who are outside from India, they can, or from US, they can pay using Zoom. I will share my account details and address with you. And from India, I can, those who are from India, I can share my account details and Paytm number with you. You will have to deposit your course fee tomorrow by itself, so that I should be able to send you invite for Saturday and Sunday class, because the batch is starting from Saturday. So I can send you invite tomorrow night. On Friday, you can attend the class. The class timing is from 4 p.m. IST. That would be near about 12 p.m. There in US or in different countries. You can calculate that. So people are from UAE, Australia, US. These people, 3-4 people have already registered. 12 seats are there, right? So that will be on first come, first serve basis, right? So do that. You all have my mobile number or not, I don't know. If you want to talk to me, so my mobile number, you can note it down. +91 875056 0006 is my mobile number. I am available on this number on WhatsApp too, right? So you can contact me on this number if you have any question, any queries, or anything to talk. Here I'm thinking, you can say 875056 0006. That's fine. So this is all from me for today, guys. If the forum is open, if you have any question, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I'm fine to the session. Okay, if you don't have any question, I'm fine to wrap up today's session. Thank you for your time today, and we'd love to see you on Saturday in the class that we are starting. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Most good night for all of you.
Okay, thank you.
Right,
Thank
good
you.
night. Thank you.
Thank you, Neeraj.